What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
An absolute monstrous show lined up today. As always, on a Wednesday, we have Jimmy Hyams. He'll join us right off the top in a matter of seconds. Hit like and subscribe on the program. Today, we have the Florida Attorney General launching an investigation of the college football playoff. What? Also, we have news of, how about Marvin Harrison taking a little shot at Jalen Hyatt? Jonas, I do, no, it's some song, but he's doing a fantastic job. Is he the best inside presence that Tennessee has had since Grant Williams after his showing? And then we're going to get into a breakdown of each individual player that's in the transfer portal. So I think there are three different categories. There's one, you ask a guy to leave. There's one where he's testing the waters. And then there's another where he just wants to leave for whatever reason. So we're going to go down through every single player that has entered the transfer portal with Jimmy Hyams and get his thoughts and our thoughts on, are these losses, or are these guys testing the waters, or are these guys that Tennessee would love to have back? And I think some are debatable. I think some are pretty obvious, but here we go. Hit that like and subscribe button. Caleb, how are you, sir?
I am great. I love hump days with Hooker.
Hump days with Hooker. That's something. Hump days with Hooker and Hyams. That's sellable right there, Jimmy Hyams.
Hello, Dave. Hello, Caleb.
How you doing, Jimmy?
Smart move to take a hard pass on that one. So I'm talking to Jimmy last night. The show represented by Banks & Jones. I'll remind you that. And I'm talking to Jimmy. I'm like, I'm getting ready to write something that's going to get me ripped. And that was what was going through my head. And I wrote it. And I think Tennessee, with all of this transfer portal news, guys going in, going out, testing the waters, people I talk to behind the scenes, I think it comes down to one thing. And I think it's that $8 million number, Jimmy. Now, I'm not blaming Nico Iamaleava. What? Huh? Caleb, say it for me. Iamaleava. Sorry. Nico, if you can say that for me, I'd appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get Nico pulled up. Iamaleava, excuse me. So I think it's that $8 million number. I think not only do players want the money to come to Tennessee, they now want the money to stay at Tennessee. So I'm not blaming Nico, Jimmy, but however it got out, I think that number still rings true in Tennessee's locker room. What's your take on that?
Well, I think a lot of players look and they say, well, if they can afford to pay this quarterback who was a backup $2 million, where's my money? But the Tennessee collective doesn't have enough money to pay everybody $2 million. Because what would that be? 160 something million dollars? No, the collective has, I don't know what Spire Sports and these other collectives have, but I would say it's somewhere south of $20 million. So it's almost like a team trying to figure out what its salary cap is going to be. We've got about $20 million. How are we going to divvy it up? So they've elected, according to the reports and according to somebody I talked to who saw the contract, they elected to go $2 million on a quarterback. Okay, so now what are you going to pay everybody else? That gets a little bit dicey. And it can create and has created dissension within a lot of programs, and perhaps even some at Tennessee. So I think by paying Nico that much, it's hard to – I can't blame Nico for taking it. And there's a part of me that thinks, could Tennessee have gotten him for a little bit less? But I do think when you pay somebody that much money, you got a whole bunch of other players that's saying, okay, where is my cut of the pie? And Tennessee doesn't have enough cut of the pie to pay everybody.
Agreed. And I want to get to Caleb on this. Jimmy, I talked to some players when all that stuff was coming down, and they said, "Oh, he's the quarterback. It's just like in high school. He dates the best looking girl and that sort of thing, and he's just the quarterback." But that sounds good, and until you're in a situation where you have a little bit of leverage and you want some cash too. So it sounded good a year and a half ago, but now it doesn't seem to be holding true.
Is that for me or Caleb?
Oh, that's for you, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think that is the case. I mean, I think one of the reasons Texas A&M struggled a year ago was they paid a lot of players, gave them NIL money to go to A&M, and then a bunch of veteran players didn't get their money, and so I think they gave up on it. They quit. They didn't play hard, and so they had a losing record. I think that has happened at other places as well. I'm not so sure if part of the Jeremy Banks, Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton feud a year ago wasn't spawned a little bit by Banks being jealous of the amount of money that Hooker was getting in an NIL and Banks not getting it. So, I think that's something that out there is going to be very tough for programs to manage. And I agree with something you said earlier about different players going into the portal for different reasons. I think a lot of them are going into the portal to see how much money they can get. And we also saw where Nebraska's coach said that if you want a good quarterback, it's going to cost you $1 to $2 million a year to get that player.
Wow.
Jimmy, I know these are kids, so I get it. They don't always think forward, but based on the support system of the university, the coaching staff, isn't it possible to at least get through to a lot of the kids? Hey, this is a very short-sighted move if you're upset with NIL. I mean, if Nico's as good as we all think he's going to be, and you're a receiver, would you rather go for NIL money, or would you rather catch passes from Nico for 2 years, which would turn you into a top 5 draft pick and make you way more money than you could ever make on the NIL market?
Yeah, and I don't think that, and some of that gets down to the player, Caleb. I think some of that gets down to the player's advisor, the mom, the dad, the agent, quote agent, the advisor, whoever it is. I think there's sometimes they get in somebody's ear and say, "Hey, you can make this money going over here. You need to do this," not thinking the consequences. Another thing that bothers me about NIL is that there have been some players that, oh yeah, they get this money, and let's say they represent a car dealership, and if they don't read the fine print, they also represent that car dealership for 7 years after their college career is over. So they turn pro, and they're like, well, wait a minute, I'm not free to go negotiate with another car dealership? No, you signed this one with us. There are a lot of bad contracts out there for some of these players, and that's also something to be mindful of.
Well, and the reason that I wrote the column that Nico's contract was the primary reason Tennessee's having some trouble is because Tennessee, for whatever reason, was the poster boy, poster child, whatever it was, Jimmy, for NIL money. I can remember, and Caleb's brought this up, Nick Saban says, well, Bryce Young's going to make $1 million before he ever played. But that didn't get as much pub. I don't know why, but Tennessee's deal with Nico seemed to get the most pub coming out of the NIL gates.
I think one reason for that is that Spire Sports was willing to talk about it and brag about it. You had a Spire Sports representative that said, hey, if you're a recruit, you need to come to Tennessee because you'll get the most money. You'll get the best car. You'll get the best food, the best meals, promoting it like it is a recruiting tool, which is what you're not supposed to do. We all know they do it. But I think it's because some people at Spire Sports got out front and started talking about what they could do for these athletes. I think that brought more attention to Tennessee. I don't remember any collective at Alabama talking about that. But I do know Spire Sports got out there and did that. And I think that's one reason that Spire Sports and UT had a meeting, and they told Spire Sports, calm it down. And I think they did.
So you think Tennessee shut them up? Because we haven't heard as much lately.
I do.
Good for them.
I do.
Caleb, take over, sir.
So Jimmy, tell me if you disagree with me on this or agree with me. Actually, both you guys can jump in. So I get, like, you're at Texas A&M, they were throwing it to like freshman defensive tackles, which is like, what? Nico Iamaleava is Josh Heupel's. I think Josh Heupel staked his whole future on Nico Iamaleava, honestly, at Tennessee. I think he's banked fully on Nico Iamaleava working out. And I think that's why he's getting so much money. Is it worth the resentment from some players that you're going to get because you paid for Nico, given the fact that Nico's success will draw, but estimated success will draw other recruits to him? Will more recruits be intrigued by wanting to play for Nico, or will they be resentful because of the money he's getting? I guess is what I'm getting.
That's a good question, and I think I think they would be more willing to play with him. But you also have what you brought up earlier. Okay, yeah, I'll go play with Nico because that can help me, but I still want $100,000. And if I can't get $100,000, I'm going to go to Texas Tech. So I don't know that it's now as simple as I want to play with the really good quarterback to increase my value. I think nowadays we're in a pay me immediately, instant gratification society, right? So I think some of that is at play. If I'm Tennessee, I don't look. I remember when Tennessee got Peyton Manning, he was a Pied Piper. They brought in all these quarterbacks and wide receivers and other players that wanted to play with Peyton Manning. And I think the same thing can go along with Nico Iamaleava, or whatever his name is, Nico. But I think that, thank you, Nico. So, but I think he can be the Pied Piper, but I think it's harder to do that now because you're going to have players with their hands out.
The other thing, too, that we talked about is an advertiser going to be upset if his player isn't playing? Well, that may or may not be the case. I see this roofer when I'm in Knoxville, and he's got Joe Milton on his billboard, and I'm thinking to myself, every time that guy Milton throws a pass 15 yards off target, he's got to be going, oh, man, I just lost a roofing contract. But anyway,
he'd probably hit the roof.
Yeah, I know that he could hit the side. He can't hit the side of the barn, but he can hit the roof. That's right. So that would actually be a very good marketing ploy. But anyway, so I think that him not playing too kind of raises the stakes a little bit. Because if I'm a starter, it's not the advertiser that's getting upset. I think it's some of the players. Like if Nico had come in and won 10 games, had been incredible, or if he does so next year, I think you're okay with that dude leading you to new heights. But when that dude's just sitting the bench and he's getting $2 million a year for 4 years, that doesn't sit real well, I don't think.
With the advertiser or the players? Or both?
The players. At first I thought advertisers. Now I think players.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Now, Nico could mitigate that, I think, a little bit by how he acts. If he comes into the locker room and he acts like I'm some big stud and he starts showing off his car and he starts showing off jewelry and all that kind of stuff, I think that can turn some people off. If he comes in with a humble attitude, I think that helps to mitigate it a little bit. And also think about this, and it kind of goes back to, I think, Caleb's point. How mature are these 18 to 22-year-old teammates you're playing with that'll look and say, okay, that's the future. I'm okay with it because that's the future. That's what you have to do. As opposed to saying, where's mine?
Yeah. I'll give you an example, Jimmy. I don't know that you and I've even talked about this, but the Kelly Washington situation when he left and came back after a spring practice with his spinner wheels. You remember they had that? Mm-hmm. And he got out of his car and they're all sweaty and getting out of spring practice. And then he goes, I'm the stuff, but he didn't say stuff. That would be the worst attitude to have. But according to everybody I've talked to, Nico has a really good attitude. So is that a concern based off anything you've heard?
No, I think he's had a really good attitude. We've heard coaches talk about that. I've talked to players in the program that said he's very humble, that he's kind of like a sponge, that he asks a lot of questions. He's willing to learn. He's willing to take a back seat. He doesn't walk around like he is the stuff. So I think he's approached it the right way. And I think that's the way he's needed to approach it so that you don't have a whole bunch of teammates getting jealous of him.
I agree.
So this is kind of – oh, sorry. I just wanted to jump in. It's pre-NIL, but, I mean, it's not like there weren't highly touted quarterbacks that came in before NIL that had a lot of hype behind him. And I think it's still how you approach, because I know Peyton Manning had to compete for the starting job with Brandon Stewart at first after all the injuries, but it seemed like Peyton Manning came in like a sponge, great leader, and that had a bigger impact than, say, Brent Schaefer going to Ole Miss, where Ed Orgeron was like, Brent Schaefer, you're the starter. No camp matters. And Brent Schaefer walked in like he was a starter and didn't care.
Yeah. And again, I want to be very clear. I'm not blaming Nico for any of this.
Right.
Whoever's promoting it or did promote it, whether that's Spire or UT, and we're thinking it's Spire, That was where the misstep was, I believe. Portions of the program brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun. Enjoy life better when you see better. Local vision service for LASIK, cataract surgery, and regular eye examinations. ccteyes.com. ccteyes.com. All right, this should be entertaining, I would say. We're going to go through the Tennessee players that are in the transfer portal. And, Jimmy, I'm going to give you and Caleb 3 options. Testing the waters to see what they could get paid elsewhere, or all out booted where Josh Heupel says, you might be better off going somewhere else, or they're leaving because they just want to leave, which was actually what the transfer portal was designed for. So let me start with Tamarion McDonald. Jimmy?
I'm going to say leave because he wanted to leave.
Okay. Caleb?
Sorry, which one? I missed that last one.
Tamarion McDonald.
Terry McDonald. Leave because he wanted to leave. He wanted to leave, yeah.
Deshaun Rucker, Jimmy.
Leave because he wanted to leave.
Okay, you don't think he was asked to leave? I thought you might say he was asked to leave.
I don't know the answer to that because he hadn't been there very long, and I don't know. So I'm going to say, and part of this is, and the reason I say that, Rucker might look at it and say, this coaching staff isn't playing me. I'm out of here. I don't know that they had to say, hey, Rucker, you need to leave. I think he looked at the writing on the wall and decided to go. So,
yeah, good point. I hadn't been there long. We barely know what he looks like. Danico Slaughter.
Well, wow, Dave didn't even let me answer that one. Okay.
Sorry. Go ahead, Rucker.
I want to agree because I'm going to agree that he wanted to leave because he wasn't playing, but they kept him in for 3 years. So if they wanted him gone, they would have nudged him out a couple years ago.
Okay, Danico Slaughter.
I think he's in it trying to find more money in NIL.
You think he's gone, or just testing the waters?
Just testing the waters.
I would go with testing the waters as well, Caleb.
I'm going to go testing the waters. And I think it's revealing that he's testing the waters because he wasn't that good when he was in there last year, guys. And we all think he was a total waste of potential. Like potential, he may be the best player on that secondary, and he never lived up to it.
We think that, but he might not think that.
Yeah, he might thought he was the second coming of Deion Sanders. Kids think that a lot. Orrin Burrell, Jimmy.
Gosh. I'm going to say he was probably asked to leave. He actually played more when he was early in his career. And I think Tennessee looked at it and said, this guy's not accomplishing anything. To me, it's a tough distinction between asked to leave and wanting to leave. And he's already committed to Georgia Tech, which is not a bad program. But I'm going to say they probably said, hey, wouldn't be a bad idea for you to try your skills somewhere else.
And just, Caleb, I want to get your answer, but just for the record, I've agreed.
Yeah, I want Caleb's answer.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on all of these. Burrell, Caleb.
Okay, this seems like it was a mutual one in the sense of, so as Jimmy remembers, when Alontae Taylor opted out of the bowl game 2 years ago, Warren Burrell became the number 1 cornerback, and man, Purdue had a field day with him. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was it was worse than Kamal Hadden against South Carolina last year, and so I think he wants to be a number 1 cornerback. He's delusional because he's never going to be one. And I think Josh Heupel and the coaching staff then told him, look, you're not going to be a number 1 cornerback here at Tennessee. If you want to be a number 1 cornerback, you need to go somewhere else.
I'm going to save the biggest for last, which is Tyler Barron. In my opinion, that would be the most significant. Addison Nichols, guys, I can tell you, give you a little insight there. I don't think they were particularly happy with his development. I wouldn't be surprised if he was asked to leave at all, Jim.
I would go with that as well. But what's odd about that is that Glenn Ellerby, Tennessee's offensive line coach, was speaking at the quarterback club in probably late October. And he said one of the bright young offensive linemen that is very promising is Addison Nichols. And so that doesn't add up based on the things I heard after that. Was Ellerby being nice and kind to him? I don't know. But he was asked directly, who are some of the young offensive linemen that you're very high on? And he mentioned Nichols as one of them.
I'm with y'all. I think they asked him to leave. Jimmy, I think they were high on him. I just think they needed him to have a little bit of a mean streak that he never got. Addison Nichols is the Blake Griffin of football. For those who don't know, Blake Griffin was super athletic, but the book out was if you cheap shot him under the basket, he backs off.
Maybe the Zion Williamson of. But
no, Zion Williamson is just fat and lazy.
Brandon Turnage.
Asked to leave.
I think so too. Caleb?
I actually think he left because he wanted to, but because he wasn't playing. Because they kept him around for, again, 3 years. So I'm going to say 1 and 2.
I am. So I'm looking at this on 3 list of the transfer portal guys. I want to get to Tyler Barron. Anybody care to guess, Jim, what Addison Nichols' value is according to On 3, which this is the silliest endeavor in covering sports that I've ever seen. You want to care to guess what Addison Nichols is worth?
$500.
$239,000.
What? We were close.
Which leads us to Tyler Barron is worth $437,000. I think he's the most significant player that I've listed. What do you think he's doing? What are his plans?
Testing the waters.
You think he ends up back at Tennessee?
Depends on how much they're willing to pay him.
I agree. Caleb, what do you think?
Testing the waters, and it is the most short-sighted decision ever because he is missing a golden opportunity to play opposite James Pierce next year. And he is doing what John Calipari said don't do. He's tripping over Nichols and throwing away millions because playing opposite James Pierce, he could turn himself into a top 3 round draft pick next year.
Yep, I tend to agree with all that. Herald Group Security Solutions brings you portions of the program leadership, experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques. They will protect your children in school. Right now, they're with private schools. We're pushing to get them in public schools as well. Protect your workplace so we can avoid some of the tragedies that have been a part of our country's recent history, and it's out there. So here's what you need to do. Go to your child's school administrator, tell them to look up Herald Group Security Solutions, or for your workplace as well. Herald Group Security Solutions. It's listed right down below, heraldgrp.com. And then I'm going to kick it to Caleb for a little Jonas Adu. He had quite the statement at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. How good do you think Jonas Adu is?
Real quick, we forgot Jack Luttrell as a transfer, but I think he was asked to leave.
What did you think, Jim, on Luttrell?
It's hard to argue with that. God, the guy's here 1 year, probably. There might have been some issues at work that I don't know about, but I'd say probably asked to leave.
All right, good point. All right, let's change it to Tennessee basketball. Caleb, you take the lead here.
Yeah, so Tennessee beats Georgia Southern 74-56 last night. Jimmy, Jonas Adu, as you know, is on a roll. He had 29 and 11 last night. It's his 3rd straight double-figure game where he really emerged. I was critical of the first double-figure game because a week ago, he was taking too many shots, I thought, away from the basket, hit a couple of threes. All of his points against Illinois were underneath the basket, though, inside the circle. Most of his points last night were underneath the circle. Is Jonas Adu turning into Tennessee's best inside presence since Grant Williams?
Probably. The key thing there, and you mentioned the three double, he's got to be consistent, okay? So John Fulkerson, you never knew what you were going to get from him. He might give you 25 against Kentucky and then 2 against somebody else. So he is becoming that. I was with a group of people that they were talking about Adu should never take a shot outside of 5 feet. I disagree with that. I like a big man who can shoot from the perimeter, like Hunter Dickinson for Kansas. Now, I don't want him taking 3-pointers if he's going to shoot 12% from 3-point range. But if he can take a 15-foot jump shot and make over 50%, I'm fine with that because that takes a Baycott away from the basket, or it takes a Zach Edney away from the basket. So I'm okay with that. I like a versatile big man that can shoot outside. And if he can continue to shoot at that level in a high percentage, I'm all for that. I did hear Rick Barnes talk about he's about as good as any big man in the country. Okay, I'm not ready to go that far. But I also remember when Rick Barnes said Grant Williams could be the SEC Player of the Year. I scoffed at that, and Barnes ended up being right.
It's a great point. I'd forgotten about that. So in terms of this basketball team, what do you think he brings? What's his significance? Because I thought last year that Tennessee struggled when they dump it down in the post, and then they didn't have guys to either they didn't have anybody to create a surefire 2, a Kevin McHale 2, as I like to call it. And then when they would kick it out, they didn't have guys that were hitting consistently. So what's the next step if he's the best post player since Grant Williams?
Well, to me, it gets back to the consistency part of it. And I do think he can score inside. And I do think he has a decent mid-range game. Here's the other part of his game. He needs to be a guy that averages 8 rebounds a game. He also needs to be a consistent double-digit scorer, but also he's a pretty good shot blocker. That's another factor with his game. So if he can improve or be consistent in those areas, he could end up being one of the best big men in the SEC.
Yeah, Jimmy, I had no issues with Jonas Aidoo's defense. As a matter of fact, I've told Dave I got no issues with this defense at all as Tennessee, and I said that in a 7-game series, if college basketball were the NBA, I would be a lot higher on Tennessee's chances to win a 7-game series with anybody because of their defense. My issue was always their offense. Can their offense withstand in March when you inevitably run into a lesser team that is shooting 78% from 3? Because that always happens in March. Do you have the offense to withstand that? If Aidoo is able to consistently stretch the court by shooting from outside, and he's physical underneath the basket scoring, do you think, given the personnel and the 3-point shooters plus Dalton Connect, that this year Tennessee has the offense to withstand a team like that in March?
I do. I do. Yes, I do. And here's a part of it. So I'm watching this Tennessee team, and they've gotten better. I thought the Illinois game, all 5 starters played pretty well to really well. And then they had Meshack come off the bench and give him a lift. He played really well. But I was looking at these stats the other day. 3 of the guys that I would consider among the best, what should be the best 3-point shooters, Vescovy, Gainey, and Ziegler. Ziegler was shooting 25% from 3-point range, and Vescovy and Gainey were shooting less than 32%. I got to think they're going to be better, right? I don't know the reasons why they're struggling a little bit, but I don't know if Vescovy was distracted by the death of his grandmother. But I think those 3 will improve their 3-point shooting. And I think Dalton Connect's a heck of an offensive player. So if I'm right about those 3-point shooters, and I think I will be, they're not going to end up with those stats. I think this offense can be good enough to withstand the moments in the NCAA where they would have 6 or 8 minute droughts where they couldn't score.
Rick Barnes said that Tennessee veterans extremely disappointing against Georgia Southern. Is this just something that you say, Jim, after you beat a lower level team because you want to motivate them a little bit, or do you think there's concern about the veteran leadership with this group?
I'm more along the lines of you got to say something after a game like that to keep them focused. But here's the thing, too. I expected a little bit of a letdown after you beat a really good ranked Illinois team, and then you're playing a winless team. I didn't expect Tennessee to come out and blow them out or play at a high level or shoot 60% because of those factors. So, yeah, I think Barnes, he's just trying to, I think, still light a fire under his team.
Great.
Yeah, and Jimmy, the good news for Tennessee is you're right. They struggled from 3 against Illinois on Saturday and still managed 86 points. And they also, Illinois is an elite defensive team. And while I say you will inevitably run into a red hot shooting team in March, the chances of you running into a red hot shooting team that also plays defense like Illinois, okay, those are slim to none in March. You don't get both of those. So.
Yeah, and here's the thing and this has been proven over a number of years. If you want to get to the Elite 8 of the Final 4, your basketball team needs to be in the top 30 in offense and defense. If you're in the top 5 in defense, but you rank 120 in offense, you're not going to get there statistically. That's what's been shown. So Tennessee has to strike that balance of being a good offensive team and a good defensive team. They can't just be really good on defense. We have seen the last few years where, in my opinion, that has not worked.
No, agreed.
Yeah, defense does not win championships in college basketball. It's the biggest lie when people said that.
Except when you punt.
Punting does not win championships either, guys.
That's right. Tennessee across the board is the favorite to win the SEC regular season, which I know at the end of the year, people are not going to care if Tennessee gets bounced out in the first couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament. But across the board, every single gambling site has them as the favorite. Kentucky, Texas A&M right behind them. But as far as teams that truly are able to challenge Tennessee for the SEC regular season crown, as we're getting close to that. Who are some programs you're keeping an eye on, Jim?
Arkansas is one of them. They've got a really good win. That's a team that I think's got a lot of talent. I like that team. I'm a little hesitant about Alabama. They had a lead against Purdue for a while before they ended up losing it. They showed some spark. Their rosters changed quite a bit from a year ago. Kentucky's got to be in there. That's one of them too. To me, Arkansas and Kentucky. Beyond that, I don't know. I might put Arkansas in there because they are a dangerous team. I think I'm leaving somebody out, but help me out, Caleb. Who am I leaving out?
Arkansas. I mean, Alabama is still Alabama with Nate Oates, but it's actually a very weak SEC this year relative to years past because Auburn's not the same program this year that they have been. So
yeah,
I think the biggest threat is Arkansas. Probably. And Arkansas's already lost a couple of games. I mean, they lost to Memphis earlier in the year. They lost a double overtime game also to, I want to say, I can't remember who it was, but they've already lost a couple of games. And so I'm not so sure that I think Tennessee has a clear path to winning the SEC this year. But again, it's Jimmy, I told Dave, Rick Barnes is at a point where, do you remember after LeBron and the Heat lost that finals to the Mavericks and the greatest choke job in professional sports history with LeBron? Remember the next year, nobody cared about LeBron in the regular season at that point. Everybody said, your whole legacy doesn't matter until June at this point. And I mean, to his credit, he delivered. I'm that way with Rick Barnes now. I don't care what he does between now and February and the end of February, even March. It's just completely overrated. So I think they are going to win the SEC, and I just don't think it matters. By the way, I want to address Ragged Top Tom saying, ask Tony Bennett about Virginia not winning titles with defense. That 2019 Virginia team was elite offensively. Anybody who watched that team had an elite offense.
I wonder if Caleb's tune might change a little bit, Jimmy, if they did the in-season tournament like they did in the NBA. Did you see any of that stupidity before I ask you about Kentucky?
No, I didn't really.
So
it just did not attract my attention, other than the fact that they were playing on the ugliest courts I've ever seen.
And they celebrated with goggles and champagne.
Yes. Who was coaching them? Butch Jones?
That was a Butch. They hung a banner. That is the most Butch Jones move ever.
Isn't it?
To hang a banner.
We're the champions of the Gator Bowl.
Yeah,
hang a banner. Yeah, right.
I could see Butch Jones saying champions of November because they beat Vanderbilt and maybe Kentucky.
Well, he did say the most forgotten part about the Champions of Life comment was right before then. He did say there's still a bowl game championship to win, guys, after they didn't win the SEC.
Yeah, I got another hoops question for Jimmy, but I want to remind you, portions of the program brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? Go to rickterryjewelry.com. rickterryjewelry.com. If John Calipari, who suddenly is getting a little bit up there in age, if he only wins one championship, will we look back at his career as disappointing?
His career.
Yes, considering the talent.
Gosh. I'm going to say no, because he did have success at UMass. He got them to a Final Four, even though they had to take the banner down. Memphis, Kentucky. Here's the way I would define his career. I would say no, it's not disappointing career. I would say what he's done at Kentucky is disappointing. Only one championship. So if I can divide it into two segments, I'd say disappointing at Kentucky, but career, no, because he did win at three different schools.
Did you know that, and I know this personally because my son goes to UMass, did you know there's a Marcus Camby section where you can buy Marcus Camby apparel?
I did not know that.
Would you like me to pick you
learn on this show? Would
you like me to pick you up anything next time I'm up there?
I'm still looking for Christmas presents. So, yeah. Can you get it to me before the 25th?
You know, a guy that went to UMass that might be a good idea to promote. He was okay. He was called Dr. J.
Oh, yeah.
That might be the guy you want to promote instead of Marcus.
Dominated Camby. A watered down ABA. Was not the same player when the leagues merged. Sorry. Julius Erving.
No, he's pretty good when the leagues merged. Yeah, he was, Caleb.
Wasn't Moses Malone the driving force of that Sixers team that won it?
So was Irving. Both of them were.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, Jimmy. Fantastic stuff as always. We greatly appreciate it, and a really good breakdown looking back over the season with some numbers in there that'll kind of blow you away. Have a fantastic rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Caleb. Y'all enjoy Hooker Hump Wednesday.
Yes, Hooker Hump Wednesday with Haun. That needs some workshopping. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, it's going to be tough to sell. That's going to be tough to pitch to an advertiser. It's Hump Day with Hooker and Himes.
I wanted to mention before. I want to keep joking about this, but I do want to mention the Calipari thing real quick. I think Calipari, I 180'd on him, and it is a disappointment because of the 2014-2015 year, Dave. When he had the number one recruiting class in 2013, as he always does, they all came back. Every one of them came back, and he got another number one recruiting class, and they went undefeated all the way to the Final Four and lost to Wisconsin in that Final Four. That's the most disappointing loss a college sports team has ever suffered, and they never should have lost that game.
You know, it really comes down to this. If Derrick Rose, and you know that team well, hits those free throws, then you're talking about two championships and at different schools. That elevates your career to a whole nother level, in my opinion. I'm mixed on John Calipari. There are times I thought he should have done a lot more in college. Just say that I'm mixed on John Calipari. I think he should have done a lot more at Kentucky with the players he has, but he still brought those players in. Sorry, go ahead.
But he also coached away that title game with Derrick Rose. I mean, in case you forgot, I don't know why you don't foul Mario Chalmers when Kansas needs a 3 to tie.
No, I don't think he's a great on-court coach. Don't get me wrong. But if Derrick Rose hits those free throws, I think that he's remembered in a far different way, because then he's built up 3 programs. He's won a championship at 2. There's a big difference to me in winning 1 championship and your second one. And there would have been a big difference in the way I think Philip Fulmer's remembered if he did even played in that Rose Bowl in 2001 and won an SEC championship against LSU. Don't you think there's a big difference between maybe not stumbling on one? Good, if Fred sees this, he'll kill me. But there's a big difference between winning 1 and 2, in my opinion. Wrong?
Oh, I totally agree. You don't fire coaches who win 2 titles. Coaches who win 1 title can still get fired if the program gets stale or anything like that. I've never heard of a 2-title coach get fired, ever.
Here's a great example. 2019 LSU, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Ed Orgeron stumbled upon that. He hired the right guys. He was smart enough to let them run it, both the coordinators, and he had an uber talented team. That to me,
and he motivated them well. To his credit, Ed Orgeron's a great motivator. So absolutely.
Like and subscribe. But Ed Orgeron winning 2, kids, that ain't never going to happen. Ever. I can promise you that.
Ever.
Portions of the program brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. It's right down below. Use the promo code HOOKED and get 10% off. Hooked, get 10% off. Hemp House Chat with 2 T's. Hemp House Chat with 2 T's.com. So coming up, we are going to take a look at a very interesting tweet by a Tennessee commitment that calls for someone to flip, and then he deletes it. This is interesting. What does it mean? We'll tell you. And how about just exactly 2 minutes? Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
Little past its time, but what about like some sort of hip hop song? We be tweeting. Could we turn that into a segment? Because it seems like some guys tweet out stupid stuff, and it seems like guys tweet out incendiary stuff, and we've got another one of those situations, which I want to get to. So explain to me what has happened in the Twitterverse, because I'm not as attuned to it as I should be, being a man with a couple of kids, and things change when you have kids as far as watching sports and being all over Twitter. Now, I'm all over Twitter if you ask me a question, and I do want to throw that out there. So we had a request, for instance, somebody said, hey, can you run down who all Tennessee is after in the transfer portal? Can you do a video on that? Well, sure. And we did. And we had written that before, but I know some people consume content in different ways. So if you ever have any requests, you can always DM me, or you can always just attach something, and I'll keep track of it. And heck, half of you guys probably know my email. It's david@offthehooksports.com. So we do take requests like Casey Kasem. By the way, did you ever hear about the whole weird story about how Casey Kasem passed away?
I did not.
It was, I shouldn't laugh, but it was essentially married a younger blonde, and she was ready for him to go, and she got all the money and got all the wills changed. That's your top 40. All right, let's get to Twitter. What do you got for me, Caleb? Because a Vol is tweeting and it's making news.
Yes, it's by the way, there is a lot of hip hop references. Drake has the best line: "Trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers." So
that's pretty good. I like that one.
Yeah. So, all right, Bennett Warren. There was a Colorado fan the other night that was
who,
tweeting
for those
at him.
that don't know.
Bennett
No relation
Warren
to Jacob that we're aware of.
No, Bennett Warren is a 4-star in Tennessee's 2024 class. There was and full disclosure, I did not see the tweet. A to Z Sports and Yardbarker both reported on it, and then I went to the page where it allegedly happened, and the tweet is deleted now. But there was a Colorado fan, fan, somebody affiliated with the program, who tweeted at Bennett Warren saying something like, we need these dogs, like talking about the offensive lineman Deion Sanders was referring to, and encouraging Bennett Warren to flip to Colorado. Bennett Warren tweeted back, "Thank you, but I'll never be a part of Colorado football. No disrespect, though." Well, that was disrespectful. And then he deleted the tweet. So this comes on the heels of Jordan Seaton committing and the rumors that are swirling in Colorado right now that Boo Carter is going to flip, which, by the way, he's not going to flip. And so
he shows up on campus like Friday or Saturday.
I know, right? If he shows up on campus Friday and flips to Colorado Friday, oh my gosh, that would almost outdo Brandon Warren committing to Florida State on Hound Dogs. That's a throwback, Dave.
That is a throwback.
But yeah, so Bennett Warren said that. I think I'm wondering if there's some annoyance among people loyal to Tennessee about the way Colorado is targeting Tennessee right now.
I think it's bigger than that. I think that here's my theory after covering recruiting. Okay, so Trooper Taylor told me one time you never go into a person's home to recruit him and mention another school. You never say, I'm with Tennessee. Eventually, we're going to beat Alabama. You don't say that because then you place them on a pedestal. And it's actually a very smart thing if you think about it. I never mention any other media entities. They're not a part of what I do. And he said, you go in 14 points down. So, but that's Trooper's theory. And that's my theory. I don't think it's all coaches' theories. Here's what I think. I think that unilaterally across the board that coaches are frustrated to heck with Deion, that he has cost them at least one commit. Seton would be an example for Tennessee. Other schools have examples too. And across the board, they're saying to these prospects that this Deion thing is a show. Now, you and I can debate whether or not it is a show. Okay. I think he's got some holes in his game, but I think he brings a lot to the table. I think that's what's happening. So if you have Tennessee say, Alabama's not that great. Well, you understand they have a vested interest. But if I get recruited by North Carolina and they say, I'm just going to tell you as a friend recruiting you, even if you pick Tennessee or Rutgers or whoever you pick, I'd watch out for Colorado. I think there is a unilateral across the board among recruiters that they are resentful of what Deion has done in particular situations. And I don't think he's very popular with other coaches. Nothing he should be worried about, but that is my theory as to some guys, and Bennett Warren, I think, would fall in line with that. Thoughts on that theory?
I think it's possible. I think if it's happening, coaches are very out of touch with how things play out to kids nowadays, particularly in the age of the internet. And look, we are in an era where there is distrust of institutions and institutional power at an all-time high. And it exists in sports as much as it does anywhere else in politics, business, you name it. If kids are seeing all the national promotion that Deion's getting and they're caught up in the hype, and every school is negatively recruiting Colorado and only negatively recruiting Colorado, I think that is the easiest way to send more kids to Colorado, just out of sheer rebellion, because they would see what's happening, that people are negatively recruiting against Colorado and they're not doing that against any other school. That would make them more wanting to help Deion and support Colorado.
Let's forget for a second that Deion's Deion. Colorado is not going to be incredibly difficult to root against, is it? I mean, it is not in the SEC or Big Ten, which are the two best conferences. And if you're going to get in a mega conference one day, you better be in one of those. And it also is not a team that's going to be playing for championships anytime soon. I hate to tell you, but it's cold as bejesus out there. And I don't think they have the facilities anywhere close to an SEC school. Plus, they had a coaching change mid-season. That's not negative recruiting, really, Caleb. That's just facts. Negative recruiting would be Deion is going to the NFL. It's a matter of time. You won't play 4 years for Deion. That, to me, would be negative recruiting. Stating facts is really not negative recruiting.
Well, if you're negative recruiting like the way you said, I think that's effective recruiting. But if you're negative recruiting like the initial thing you brought up, which is people are saying Deion's a sideshow and this isn't a thing, I think players are going to resent that and they'll be more wanting to go to Colorado. But if you're negative recruiting, which is Sean Lewis was, you're right, demoted midseason, and Colorado is not in the SEC or the Big Ten. They're nowhere near getting into the SEC or the Big Ten. I don't care how good of a job Deion does there. You can negative recruit on those things. Look, negative recruiting, if you negative recruit on facts, it's one thing. I'm positive that Mark Richt and Nick Saban used the NCAA investigation and the hostess scandal against Tennessee in 2011 and 2010. And
I'm positive that Tennessee's discipline issues in the late 90s, early 2000s was used as well. more early 2000s.
Oh, absolutely, it was. Absolutely. I'm positive it's still used against Florida to this day. I've said, I think that people say there's a culture at Florida where players don't have any discipline. And I think Urban Meyer wrecked that program for a long time because of it. So, yeah, that's effective negative recruiting. But I'm saying if you bring the whole Deion's a show thing, you don't think they've already heard from other people that Deion's a show? You don't think they're already there? You don't think they've understood those debates nationally? If a coach says that to them, in their mind, the first thing is, well, this coach is old school and doesn't know any better. I don't want to play for him anyway then.
True.
And
here's the way I'm going to paraphrase. Here's the way I would put it out there. I would say, man, what Deion's done is really impressive. He's made Colorado relevant again. I mean, like any schools, they have their issues. I mean, they had a midseason coaching change, and they did still just win. Was it 3 games last year?
Four.
I mean,
they won
4. So they got a ways to go, but there are a lot of good things. I haven't seen their facilities. You probably have. You've seen our facilities too, but we would just love to have you at School X. That is not, to me, negative recruiting. Now, if you come out and say, Deion's a sideshow, he's a dad-blamed idiot, well, then, right, kids are going to be like, who is this old-fashioned fuddy-duddy in front of me?
Exactly. That's exactly what they would do. So that's why it's funny that Bennett Warren saying this. This is coming from the narratives around Colorado are coming from recruits, not the coaches. Bennett Warren took the shot at Colorado, not Josh Heupel. Boo Carter went to Colorado to recruit for Tennessee, reportedly. And I don't know if Josh Heupel sent him there, but I doubt it. And on the other side,
I doubt it.
On the other side, Deion Sanders, we talked about it last week, is race being brought up in recruiting. That was a player who volunteered that information, not Deion Sanders, a recruit. So the commitments are explicitly driving the narrative that was always in the back of our heads with Colorado anyway, in a lot of ways.
That's well put. Let's get to 4 Downs, brought to you by our friends at Dynasty Spas, as we talk a little bit of Colorado's influence on Tennessee and the SEC. 4 Downs, brought to you by Dynasty Spas in Athens. They are awesome.
4 Downs, brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
There we go. Imagine having the best spas right here, made in the United States in your backyard. They're in Athens. Complete support, spa covers, and chemicals to keep your spa bubbling at its best. It's Dynasty Pools and Spas. Dynasty Pools and Spas. You can go to dynastyspas.com. Those chemicals, by the way, are the best in the biz, and you got to check them out. All right, so let's jump in the hot tub with Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe. Coop here. First down.
Is Colorado targeting the Vols? There's been a lot of talk between Colorado and Tennessee. Do you think that they're in any shape, form, or fashion targeting the Vols as the Vols came off a disappointing 8-4 season?
Yes, I think they're targeting the Vols. I think big reason, too, the big reason is even with or without Sean Lewis, if you watch Colorado's offensive system, they like to run tempo. Tennessee likes to run tempo, so they're kind of going for similar offensive players.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Second down. Brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Does Colorado have more swag? This time last year, nobody had more swag than Tennessee. Everybody loved Tennessee. They got who they wanted in the transfer portal. They were the hot team. But does Colorado, who's just coming off a 4-win season, Tennessee coming off an 8, do they have more swag with recruits than Tennessee because of Deion Sanders?
Not at the moment because of how they finished the season. I think that Tennessee still, Josh Heupel's got a little flair to him when he recruits, and Josh Heupel has proven a little bit. So the swag thing, look, swag without wins just looks stupid at that point, doesn't it, Dave? So it
does. Like, even if they were 6-6 and made a bowl game, then you'd be like, oh, look at me. Swag without it, yeah. That is bizarre. All right.
It's like that.
Yes.
So it's like Kadarius Toney that was talking all that trash at the beginning of the season, and how many mistakes has Kadarius Toney made for the Chiefs this year? So,
what down, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
What's the ceiling for Colorado and Deion? With Deion, what's the ceiling? I'll give you a couple different levels: bowl game, conference championship, college football playoff, national championship.
Well, they're in the Big 12, so I'm going to say conference championship, which would automatically mean college football playoff next year. And that's because Arizona would have won the Big 12 this year at 9-3 if you look at the teams that are going to be there next year. So I think Colorado could easily win the Big 12 in a few years. But I think college football playoff. I can't go national championship. I could go maybe get to the semis. Maybe one day they'll squeak into the semis and get their brains beat out by Georgia. But that's their ceiling to me.
Okay, 4th down.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
What's the floor? The floor to me, I'll go first if you don't mind. The floor to me is they have a really big year with his son at quarterback, Shedeur Sanders. I'm not sure how much eligibility he has left. If you could look that up for me. They have a really big year with Shedeur Sanders, and Southern California needs a coach because Lincoln Riley goes to the NFL, and Deion Sanders leaves after winning 8 games in a season. I think that's the floor. That's as bad as it could go. You?
That's as bad as it could go? You think an 8-win season is as bad as it could get with Deion Sanders in Colorado? You think he's that successful?
I don't know. I think he can get to 8, given the Big 12. Apparently, you don't.
I think 6 and well, no, I do, but I think you didn't say he can get to 8. You said 8 is the floor, meaning he can't do worse than 8-4 and go get hired somewhere else.
Okay, well, I guess I'm looking at it like this. Maybe this is a little bit different. Okay, well, the floor is 6. I see what you're saying. I guess I was going with the likelihood. So
okay, yeah,
you caught me on that.
I think the floor is 6 and 6. I think the floor is 6 and 6. I think they'll be 6 and 6 next year. Look, again, Dave, you watched Shedeur Sanders play. If he had like just 2 halfway decent blockers, Colorado's winning like 3 more games probably this year.
That poor kid was running all over the place, wasn't he?
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I
honestly,
don't know that anybody was blocking for him.
And where I blame Deion somewhat is I think he was trying so hard to make Shedeur a star, knowing the lack of offensive line he had. I think he let Shedeur get beat up he let his son get beat up way too much last year, way more than he should have.
Yep. Portions of the program brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Real estate experts with over 4 decades of combined experience in East Tennessee. Best prices, best service in the Knoxville area. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. And we turn to Jalen Hyatt, who
some more trigger fingers.
Caleb and I have both admitted that we were wrong. We thought he was a product of the system. We thought that Josh Heupel made him a star. Well, since then, he's gone on to, I think he won maybe Rookie of the Week or something. He's gone on to impress people with the New York Giants. He hasn't exploded onto the scene by any stretch of the imagination, but he's been pretty good. Why does Jalen Hyatt suddenly matter? Because Marvin Harrison Jr. Liked a tweet suggesting he should have won the Biletnikoff Award over Hyatt. Why does Hyatt get no respect? And your thoughts on Marvin Harrison Jr.?
So this all comes from the controversy of people think Malik Neighbors should have won the Biletnikoff over Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a better NFL player, but if you look at the stats alone this year, Malik Neighbors blew Harrison out of the water in terms of raw numbers. So because of that, there was a tweet by Jeremy Birmingham, who is a recruiting analyst and photographer.
Who ironically is from Tuscaloosa, but anyway.
Really? Because he covers Ohio State for... He covers Ohio State... Oh, gosh. Because his last name's Birmingham.
Jeremy Birmingham. Who's from Addison.
He covers Ohio State for Rivals. And he said Malik Neighbors' beef is with Jalen Hyatt, not Marv. His implication is that Marvin Harrison got the award this year as a makeup for not winning it last year when he should have won it last year. Marvin Harrison responds, tell him. And so that's where this is all coming from. Now, look, gun to my head. I'm going to be fair to Marvin Harrison here.
Whoa. That's it. Gun to your head. You know, Marvin Harrison Jr., his dad probably shot
Marvin
a man.
Harrison Jr.'s dad's gun to my head. That or Alvin Kamara's fist to your head in an elevator. I don't know which one I'd. Okay, anyways, or Ray Rice's fist, but I'm not a girl, so that's okay. Okay, so Marvin Harrison Jr. to me is going to be better in the NFL than Jalen Hyatt or Malik Neighbors. I think he's the best of the three. Don't you, Dave? Just straight up NFL talent, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best of the three.
I will say yes, because I think Jalen Hyatt has to continue to fall into that right system where they take advantage of his speed. But I don't think he's incredibly more talented. I just think they have two different skill sets. I think Marvin Harrison's a better all-around receiver.
Okay.
So, yes.
I agree. Now, the better player, that's not who this is award for. The award is for the best producer. And there can be no doubt that Jalen Hyatt outproduced Marvin Harrison last year and that Malik Neighbors outproduced Marvin Harrison this year. And so you go to who had the better year. And by the way, based on NFL draft picks, Marvin Harrison had the better quarterback throwing him the ball last year than Jalen Hyatt because C.J. Stroud was picked second and Hendon Hooker was a third-round pick.
Yep, absolutely. Harrison, 77 receptions for 1,263 in 2022. And Hyatt had 67 receptions for 1,267. He had more picks. The yardage, had more catches. The yardage is about the same. I mean, you could make that argument, especially since Ohio State was so loaded at receiver in 2022. And they had to spread the ball out a little bit. But I think it comes down to there are some people out there that aren't willing to say exactly what we've said. And that is that Tennessee's offense is not a gimmick offense, that Tennessee's offense did not just produce Jalen Hyatt. And Caleb, that's where Tennessee is, in my opinion. But I think there are still some people out there, especially after an 8-4 season, that they view Tennessee as a gimmick offense, which I don't believe is true.
Yeah, I think there are people, too, that view it as a gimmick offense. But that's really rich considering the fact that Marvin Harrison is playing in the spread offense, which I know it's won a couple of national titles with Urban Meyer. But, okay, in 2005, the spread offense was considered a gimmick offense, wasn't it, when he brought it to the SEC?
Was. So as far as from the SEC's perspective, which program are you most worried about when the college football playoff comes around? I think a lot of people would jump on Ohio State, but you and I are both down on Ryan Day. We do agree on that. Is it Michigan? Is it Southern California with Lincoln Riley? What team, and I'm talking 2024 SEC, okay? So Texas and Oklahoma are in there. What program are you most worried about long-term if you get into the college football playoff and you get matched up against this team?
It's always Ohio State. Ohio State's the best job outside of the SEC, and it would be the third best. All coaches being equal, Ohio State would be the third best program in the SEC behind Georgia and LSU. And
why not
if
Michigan?
every team, I don't think. Well, one, because of Jim Harbaugh always flirting with the NFL, and I don't think Michigan's a good job. I think it's a bad job when you compare the talent is not the same in Michigan. And I know NIL changes this, don't get me wrong, but I still think there is a hometown factor, the amount of talent that's in the state of Ohio and the level of competition they have. And by the way, Ohio State is one of those schools. I'm just going to say it. You brought up Ed Orgeron earlier. Ed Orgeron, Les Miles, and Larry Coker at Miami and LSU, two easy jobs. All they had to do was be a mascot and watch their team win a national title because of all the talent that fell into their lap. Ohio State is that type of school. Ryan Day, I think he's overrated. I don't think he's done a good job. But at Ohio State, talent can fall into your lap and you can get a national title out of it.
Yeah, I believe that Michigan has surpassed Ohio State as the scariest team outside the SEC for the short term. But you're right. The minute Jim Harbaugh goes and he's the head coach for whoever, I'm going to take that statement back. But right now, the NFL doesn't seem to want him because he's flirted with them a couple of different times. I think Michigan is the scariest team that you would play right now because they're fundamentally sound as well. Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million Sports Treasures and so much more. Follow them on Facebook. Go to facebook.com and then just follow them, Sports Treasures TN, and you'll get those daily updates, which are awesome. But I really believe that Michigan will continue to have more success under Jim Harbaugh than Ohio State will under Ryan Day for the foreseeable future. Now, Jim Harbaugh leaves to the NFL. If he does, all bets are off. But when I look, and I thought, give me a little bit of kudos here. I told you that I thought Michigan was the best football team in September. And I think that's proven out to be true. And I think Harbaugh really has also galvanized that program because of what they went through this season, which was the scouting of other teams. And a school that once cared every bit as much about academics and integrity as they did about athletics realized that academics and integrity don't pay the bills. Athletics does. Let's get behind this Harbaugh guy. And I think they're galvanized as a program. If he stays there for any amount of time, I think he wins a couple of national titles.
Okay. I could see that. Now, Dave, you want to know how many national titles Michigan has since the end of World War II?
1.
Half of one.
Wow.
They share it with Nebraska. Now, they share it with Nebraska. Now, that Nebraska team would have beaten the brakes off them, I think. But in the defense, you told me, I did not know this. I just learned this last week, and I read it up on. I didn't realize the rumors of Nebraska and steroids during the 90s. I didn't realize that was like a real big conspiracy theory. Just dropping that on there.
Interesting.
But
by the way, Jim Harbaugh, 59. He'll be 60 on Christmas Eve to the 23rd.
And their half national title was when Ohio State had a Tennessean who couldn't coach worth a flip, but could still win a lot of games because it's Ohio State. And I'm talking about, as you know, John Cooper. And
who, by the way, like Walter Nolan and me, is a Powell High School alum. So there you go.
That is true. There you go. Yes. he was able to win. He was able to win 3 Big Ten titles and finish in the top 5 multiple times, despite not being a great coach. So is Ryan Day the new John Cooper? Is that what we're saying? Because I could get down with that, because Ryan Day, I think, is not a good coach.
Wow, I think Day's better than that, but you've got an argument to be made. Have you seen the new facilities at Tennessee Cider Company? They were all over Facebook. It's unbelievable. The original hard cider at the Smoky Mountains. Use the promo code HAT to receive some free swag on your cider order right down below. Available most anywhere in the U.S. Go to tncidercompany.com, tncidercompany.com. And when we start talking attorney generals, I typically turn this to Caleb because he has a background covering news and politics. And there's a Florida attorney general that is launching an investigation into the college football playoffs. That and our 5 favorite minutes, where it's all about you in 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
We believe every day is a good day to be thirsty. With free samples on draft and lots of flavors to choose from, Tennessee Cider Company prepares a hard cider that's easy to enjoy. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. The area of Gatlinburg has so much to offer, and so does Tennessee Cider Company. Add us to your list for shopping and fun experiences. You'll be glad you made the trip. Find our cidery in the Mountain Mall on the Gatlinburg Parkway. Sip smart. Sip the good stuff. Sip Tennessee Cider Company. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Who?
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Just by the way, that NBA in-season tournament, that was about the dumbest thing in the world.
It was they thought it would generate ratings. It did nothing. You know how you could make it actually fun? Like the winner automatically gets like a top 2 seed in the playoff. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's not a
Something
bad
like that.
idea. I still like my idea of, we're looking at teams like Alabama and Georgia. So they're going to make the college football playoff most years rather than not with one loss, and definitely going to make it at undefeated anybody from the SEC. So the question is, how tough are your non-conference opponents? This is gimmicky, like that stupid NBA thing, but I like it a lot because I came up with it. And that is have a matchup between Big Ten teams and SEC teams, much like the NFL does, where like the AFC East will play the NFC North or whatever. And then the next year, so you seed them accordingly. So you have even-ish matchups, right?
Love the idea. Love it. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I'm totally with you. I mean, how epic would Ohio State, Georgia, and we're going to get Michigan, Alabama in the playoff, but a Michigan, Alabama regular season game. And I think, because the playoff is expanded, we need to see more elite non-conference games, because I'm going to be much harder on teams that don't schedule tough non-conference, because you have 12 slots to get into the playoff. And if you patty cake your non-conference schedule and get into the playoff, I'm sorry, I'm going to hold that against you really, really strongly.
Apex Apparel Group design, brand, market your way. Unique products to promote your business with unparalleled customer service. They can outfit your entire fleet. Go to apexapparelgroup.com, apexapparelgroup.com. It's right below. Or call Tyler at 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. Tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you. Support our sponsors. That is why we are here. Our 5 favorite minutes coming up where we will discuss what is on your mind. We end every show with that and your opportunity to win fantastic prizes. And who doesn't like prizes? Who does like getting sued? Not many people, but that could be happening in the state of Florida, as there had been this talk that Florida State might boycott the Orange Bowl because they didn't make the college football playoff. And now we're getting guys that need votes involved, which usually means I just want to get myself in the spotlight. But in this particular situation, I want to ask Caleb because he's my resident political expert. So what do you make? What's going on with the Florida Attorney General saying, I'm coming for you, college football playoff, stand on business, or whatever the heck that means? I still don't understand what that means.
We stand on business, Josh. Okay, so Ashley Moody, the Florida Attorney General, actually pretty good looking too. You should pull up a picture. The Florida Attorney General has said she is launching a probe. By the way, she's a Gator and she's doing this, but she says she's launching a probe into the College Football Playoff Selection Committee over how Florida State was left out. What they want is any evidence. They're trying to look to see if there was any anti-competitive conduct. They're suggesting that there were financial bias reasons whatsoever, that anti-competitive reasons, quote unquote, that the committee chose an SEC team. That, let's just say it. They're saying the SEC overall over Florida State. Now, to go further, they're accusing the committee of costing Florida State and the ACC millions of dollars. Now, I will point out, this comes a week after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said he was going to put $1 million aside to look into this. Dave, you and I know Ron DeSantis is running for president right now. He's desperately trying to outshine. He's desperately trying to cut into Trump's lead in the Republican primary. And now, by the way, it's a Republican primary. You know what you probably shouldn't do? Upset Alabama and Texas fans. Okay, so
that's fair. And she, by the way, went to the University of Florida, so maybe she needs votes in the Panhandle because she's essentially fighting for Florida State. I want to ask you this, Caleb, but Tennessee was almost in this situation last year, and the fact that they were behind Alabama despite beating Alabama was pure ludicrous to me. So Tennessee easily could have been the 5th team last year, especially if not for that South Carolina. Well, they're in if they beat South Carolina. But if a couple of things shook out the right way, they could have been 5th and Alabama could have been 4th. Would you want your school to make this much noise to say, hey, we might boycott the bowl, get the attorney general involved? Would you want all this, or would you rather just fade away? Because the same college football playoff committee is going to be in charge of the 12-team playoff, and they've got memories. They don't want to continue to pick up the paper and read how stupid they are in the newspaper every day, or actually online nowadays. But would you want Tennessee to do this, Tennessee to shake the tree if they got left out of the college football playoff?
I wouldn't be against it, but with the 12-team playoff, like if you're complaining about 13, you look stupid. Okay, so like 4 to 5 maybe, but like 12 to 13, get over it. Okay, you had plenty of chances to get in. Florida State is making the case because they went undefeated. Tennessee would have a stronger case last year with 2 losses in Florida State this year, by the way. And I'm going to tell you why. 2 reasons. Dave, you're Florida State, real quick. We're in court. I'm going to be the attorney representing the college football playoff. You're some Florida State representative upset. You tell me why this is unjust. Why Florida State was mistreated.
I don't think they were mistreated. I think that the Jordan Travis injury, their quarterback, should play into it because this is a TV show and they wouldn't have been as well equipped to beat the best teams in the nation and probably could have laid a big dud. So I don't think they were mistreated. I'm having trouble coming up with a way.
Well, and here's where I have to, I got to point this out. If you're Florida State, because what they're alleging is SEC bias and costing the ACC money. Hey, Florida State, did you or did you not have a chance to join the SEC 30 years ago? You're saying you're being cost money because of SEC bias. Yeah, they had a chance, right? And they turned it down, right?
By the way, the Florida Attorney General, who is quite fetching, Ashley Moody, 30 years ago would have been 18 years old. So I don't know that she's aware of that.
You don't know that would have been 18, 30 years ago?
No, okay, I don't know that she's aware that Florida State turned down the SEC.
But I'm bringing it up because this is very relevant because they're saying they are unfairly treated because of SEC bias and this is costing the ACC money. They're doing this on behalf of the ACC. Well, Florida State, you had a chance to join the SEC 30 years ago and you turned it down. Here's the other question. Did the ACC or did the ACC not nix the expanded 12-team playoff for this year when the SEC was actually for the 12-team playoff?
Yes.
So how can the ACC complain? Because had they actually gotten on board with the 12-team playoff, they would have Florida State in there this year. So is it not the ACC's fault, not the selection committee's fault, that Florida State's not in there? And more importantly than that, and this is the most important, yes, it's bias. Who cares? It's obviously biased. That's the whole point of the selection committee. Like, the ACC wanted this. They wanted to keep this college football playoff system in place. They wanted the 14 playoff with the biased selection committee. So you can't now come back and complain about it, right?
No, I don't think you can. And she's tweeted out, I'm a lifelong Gator fan, but I see injustice. And when I see injustice, I put my cape on and fly around. She didn't actually tweet that, but the first part she did. Doesn't she have anything better to do? Isn't there some homeless shelter or something that she could champion a cause for and help people as opposed to just get her name out there? I mean, you know better than I do. That's what this is all about. I mean, the simple fact is that Florida State can only hurt themselves. They can't help themselves moving forward, can they?
Yeah, they can only hurt themselves. And Florida as a state is only hurting itself by doing this. How upset would you be if you're a taxpayer in Florida, Dave, and you find out $1 million that money money you pay in taxes is going to this lawsuit that is not going anywhere? And then you drive to work one day and you drive over a cracked pothole that messes up your tire that could have been fixed, but they got to go fight this lawsuit for Florida State that's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. The message board said you're fired up and focused. This is just like the steroid thing with Major League Baseball, except that was way bigger.
And also because that was affecting lives. Remember, steroids, Balco was actually getting involved with high school kids, and there were suicides that were happening because they were, encouraging high school kids to take steroids in the Bay Area.
Well, that's frowned upon.
Yes, but look it up with Nebraska in the 90s, by the way. There are a lot of theories that Nebraska's dominance when they didn't have a lot of NFL talent had to do with that. I'm just saying. And I mean, a couple of stars from that team did have some rages that might have looked like roid rage. I'm just saying. Not naming any running backs' names, but
so you'll be raging when you put in that claim and it's not what you expected. That doesn't happen with Don Self. Your State Farm agent in the Chattanooga area. Go to donself.net, donself.net, or call 423-396-2126, 423-396-2126. For over 40 years, Don's built his reputation on taking care of their customers. Everybody's shopping for the best price, but when you send that claim in, you want to know that everything's good to go. That's Don Self, your neighborhood State Farm agent for the greater Chattanooga area. I just think at some point it gets embarrassing. I just think it gets embarrassing for Florida State. And you just got to look at this pragmatically. If you are picking a team, and Tennessee went through this, Tennessee basketball, when John Higgins got hurt. Well, let me ask you this, because I've made this reference a couple of times. I know for a fact that if John Higgins doesn't get suspended for taking 4 upper-level math classes and gets suspended for the postseason, they were all 400-level math classes. I mean, the smartest person if you're on our message board, probably could not pass 2 of those classes, and he didn't. And you had 6 hours to be in the postseason, so he didn't participate. I was told by somebody in the room, Tennessee was the 65th team. They didn't make the tournament under Buzz Peterson that year. Does Florida State make the college football playoff if Jordan Travis is healthy?
I'm going to go I'm going to say something crazy. I still say no, because I look at their body of work. I don't think an undefeated ACC team has the same resume as a one-loss SEC team or a one-loss Big 12 team that beat that one-loss SEC team. And I still would have here's where the committee stepped in it. I'll say this on Florida State's behalf, and here's where the committee stepped in it. They never should have said it was about the Jordan Travis injury. If you want to say that, fine, and you want to say it's about the 4 best teams, most deserving is not in our lexicon. Well, then if that's the case, Washington and Texas shouldn't be in the playoff. Ohio State and Georgia should be. Because the 4 best teams in the country, Dave, are Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, and Ohio State. Washington and Texas are not in that group. I'm sorry. So they clearly factored in most deserving. Now, if they had gone up front and said it's about body of work, I still would have kept Florida State out, even with Jordan Travis healthy. Now, where it's a little interesting is where they're from a legal perspective.
Can I play devil's advocate? Can I play devil's advocate on that one thing? Sure. I think having Florida State back in the mix with a star quarterback, if I'm building a TV show, I do want to try to get them in there. I'm not saying I can't. I'm not saying they deserve it more. You're absolutely right on everything you said. But as a TV show, to get Florida State in there, that was a perennial power not that long ago. So I would try. I think it affected it. I don't know that it was the determining factor. Go ahead. You were talking politics.
Yes. So from a legal, I was talking legal, not politics so much, but from a legal perspective, and this is funny because it's the 5th versus the 65th, Tennessee would theoretically have a stronger case about the NCAA holding John Higgins against them. They would have a stronger case than Florida State would. And the reason that's the case, Dave, is I need people to understand this. The college football playoff is not sanctioned by the NCAA. The NCAA has never in history recognized a national championship in college football. It has never happened.
Yep.
This is
the guy that oversees the college football playoff is Bill Hancock, and he does not have NCAA on his business card. I can tell you 100%.
He does not. He does not at all. This is an agreement between the Power 5 conferences and Notre Dame's athletic director that this is how they would do it. And Florida State's in one of those Power 5 conferences that they chose to be in. So there's really no way you can whine because this isn't a nonprofit, publicly funded institution that has academic ties like the NCAA. So you have, sorry, I just saw the message board and I've lost my train of thought for a second.
You have to stop looking at that thing. But yes, that was a good line, Evan.
Sorry.
All right,
but all
forward.
I would say, I'm sorry. All I would say is that Florida State, there is no complaint. The College Football Playoff Committee answers to no one. Like that's how this works. I mean, they answer to no one.
Aren't they eventually going to wrestle away all the power from the NCAA, or have they done so already?
You know, I thought about that. The catch is where the NCAA still has strong power is, look, you can do this with college football, but the existence of the NCAA makes it easier to sanction a lot of other small sports that just don't generate any revenue. It's a lot easier to have the NCAA as a governing body organize volleyball. You know what I mean? Like you think the power conferences, Dave, want to organize volleyball? And
no, probably not. Based off, no, they don't, and they probably don't even want to. Have you ever thought about what a terrible task it would be to put the NCAA basketball tournament together with all the moving parts? I wouldn't want to do that.
I wouldn't want to do that at all. Yeah,
I'll pick the teams, but I don't want to do this whole pod thing where they go to certain areas of the country and all this. I mean, when it comes, I don't even predict those things. I will tell you based off a really good source I have when we get to that time where I think Tennessee's basketball team will go, what seed they'll be, and I'll be pretty accurate on it. But as far as predicting where they're going to go, holy, I have no idea.
And they don't even and they've dropped they've dropped the curtain too, where they used to somewhat take a look at the conference tournaments. They throw those things out the window now. They have the tournament set the Wednesday before the Power 5 conference tournaments begin. And then they adjust the seating if somebody accidentally screws up and wins that one of those tournaments as an underdog. Outside of that, the tournament is set the Wednesday before that Sunday.
Yep, absolutely. Now let's get to our 5 favorite minutes, brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks & Jones is ready to go to trial for you. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. Absolutely love him. All right, so you get to take over the program for a moment. You get to tell us what you want to talk about. And this was an idea that Caleb and I had, and it's kind of grown into where we've actually done 2 or 3 topics off of this. So
in honor of Hump Day, the best question today gets to get into Dynasty Hot Tub with Hooker. And we'll try to get Bill Hancock and Michael Penix Jr. there too.
We're not going to do any of that. We're not going to do any of that. All right. So what are your thoughts? And I'll get it kickstarted a little bit, but definitely want to get your thoughts and you take it the direction you want to go. Should Florida State have been left out because of schedule, because of Jordan Travis, because of body of work? What's the primary reason? Caleb, it's tough for me not to say body of work, but I think Jordan Travis is probably a little bit closer than you.
I think Jordan Travis makes it easier. But for me, it's body of work. I'm leaving them out for body of work. Now I'm going to be honest, I'm violating the selection committee's rules. The selection committee is required to their task is to pick the 4 best teams, period. They don't do that though. They go by body of work, and their body of work was weak. Sorry, Florida State. It's your fault. Your body of work was weak. Should have joined the SEC.
Yep. K-Pod says that's a terrible name, K-Pod, for actually a beautiful picture that you have there. She says, when people cut you down or talk behind your back, remember they took time out of their pathetic lives to think about you. I had a friend in high school that used to say that all the time. And I'd say, I just want to let you know saying such about you. At least they're talking about me. So we were talking earlier about Colorado attacking Tennessee. Let me go off on this tangent for a second. In a sense, is it a compliment that Colorado is targeting Tennessee? And I think they're targeting Tennessee because Tennessee's coming off an 8-4 record and not as hot. But I do think it's a compliment that you look at Tennessee and who they're recruiting and you say you got to go after those guys. Should Tennessee take that as a compliment?
I mean, I don't know if you take it as a compliment. I think it's just, I mean, there were a lot of Tennessee players being targeted 3 years ago when Jeremy Pruitt was fired. I don't think they were like, oh, this means that our program is in great shape because all of our players are being targeted right now. You know, when they wanted Eric Gray, that was obviously evidence of how good Tennessee was as a program.
So what player, I guess it would be Henry To'o, has Tennessee lost in the portal that was the most damaging?
To'o was a big one. That was a good one. Wanye Morris was a big loss in the portal. You had Quavaris Crouch, Eric Gray, I mentioned. But To'o was probably the biggest loss in the portal. But people were very upset about that. Guys, Henry To'o was thinking about his future, and he didn't want to be part of Tennessee, not knowing what was the future of the program at the moment. And I don't blame any of those guys for going. Also, he might have been forced out because we don't know if Henry To'o was paid. So I mean, there's that too. Yeah.
And how about tomorrow we get into Tennessee's biggest loss in the transfer portal? Mead Drinker says was our two worst hires, both from Alabama, Sal Sinceri and Jeremy Pruitt.
Sal Sinceri.
Yeah, pretty much. I'll tell you.
You also forgot Dave Hart, the athletic director.
Yeah, I'll tell you. But yeah, who spent some time at Florida State. I'll tell you what a coach told me that I highly respect. And I said, what do you think about Sal Sinceri being the defensive coordinator at Tennessee? And he's an SEC coach. And you talk about the worst endorsement ever. He said, but it was kind of guised, which I liked it. He said, he goes, well, he's not good with people and he's not very bright. But other than that, I think he'll do a great job. Is that not the best? How bad did I want to print that, Caleb?
That is, that's hilarious.
I mean, other than he's not good with people and he's not bright, I think he'll do a great job.
So you were tied to the program at that time. Do you think Derek Dooley hired Sal because literally everybody said no at that moment to him? So he just
absolutely.
Yeah,
and I mean, we've had a couple of conversations about that, and that is how different Tennessee is now. They're not going to get a bunch of no's. If Josh Heupel were to get hired by the Dallas Cowboys, I think they'd get a bunch of yeses, and that's why Tennessee's program to me is foundationally so much better than it was just 5 years ago. I think they get a lot of yeses from.
Well, this is we're talking assistants too with Sal specifically, but. Yeah, because he was an assistant. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Josh Heupel largely can hire most assistants he wants, which is a good sign. But everybody talks about decommitments as the red flag that the program's faltering. No, I've covered enough football now, Dave. The biggest red flag that your coach is about to be fired is if more than 4 assistants leave 1 year.
That, and I'll go with, I don't particularly like Lou Holtz as a person because he's dog cussed me. But I will say this, Lou Holtz says when you look up in the seats and you see a bunch of empty seats instead of fans, that's a big one too. And you look at the Dooley era at the end of it, it was about 60% full. That's bad. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, represented by Banks and Jones. This is Off the Hook Sports, weekdays at 10 a.m. Don't forget to follow us on the Twitter at the Dave Hooker or at Caleb Calhoun at OTH Media. Hit like and subscribe one more time. Turn your notifications on. Give us a rating if you're on the audio podcast, be it Spotify or Apple, whatever the case may be. We appreciate you being a part of the program. So tomorrow we will discuss not only Tennessee basketball with a very, very special guest that I mentioned before, but I'm not going to tell you now because it's a tease, but he's got more energy than anybody I know. And also, has Tennessee really lost anything significant in the transfer portal? That'll be a Thursday. Off the Hook Sports. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave